prior to his passing, Moses was commanded to write a song as a legacy for the people. Now write this song for you and teach it to the children of Israel. Place it in their mouths so that this song will be a witness for me to the children of Israel. And that song forms the subject of this week's Torah reading, Ha'azinu. Poetically and in a very highly condensed form, it describes the rise of Israel, their sins, punishments, and ultimately their redemption. And the poetic style and including the two-column form, the very unusual two-column form in which it's written in the Torah, was designed to facilitate remembering its contents throughout all of the generations. Historically, as it happens, children in Jewish schools used to learn to memorize the song. And the song begins with the words, Ha'azinu ha'shamayim va'adabera, v'tishma ha'aretz imrei fi. Listen, the heavens, and I will speak, and the earth will hear the sayings of my mouth. This is Moses addressing the heavens and the earth. And Rashi says that Moses called on the heavens and the earth to bear witness to his words, because being flesh and blood, his life would inevitably end. And if at a later stage, Israel were to claim, hey, we never accepted the covenant, who would be there around to contradict them? And therefore, he called on the heavens and the earth as witnesses to his words, because their presence is constant and permanent. And additionally, in accordance with the Torah principle that the witnesses are the first to execute the punishment, if Israel were to sin, the heavens would withhold its rain and the earth its produce. And that's a lovely poetic idea. But as always in the Torah, there are deeper layers of meaning as well. So according to some of the commentators, heaven and earth in this verse are actually metaphors for the heavenly and the earthly, the spiritual and the material, soul and body. And therefore, in calling upon the heaven and the earth, Moses is talking to us about our souls and our bodies. And it's in regard to them that he commands us with the word ha'azinu. Ha'azinu, your soul and your body. What does that mean? Well, we translate ha'azinu as listen. And an ear in Hebrew is called, of course, an ozen, ha'azinu. Listen is something which you do with the ear. The ear is the instrument through which we listen or hear. And ears in plural, of course, ozen in the singular, and oznayim are ears, the two ears together in the plural. And oznayim has the same letters and the same sound even as another word in Hebrew called moznayim. Oznayim, moznayim. What does moznayim mean? Scales. Balance is universally represented by a pair of scales. And balance resides in our inner ear. And that's why ears and scales have the same word, because they both have the concept of balance at their core. Well, we take balance for granted, but anyone who has suffered an ear infection or worse, an episode of tinnitus, knows that losing one's sense of balance is both disorientating and very, very distressing. So understanding now that the word ha'azinu contains within it the idea of balance, our verse can now be read in a radically different way. Says Moses, the most important thing for you to know at the outset is ha'azinu ha'shamayim va'aretz, establish a balance between soul and body, a balance between the spiritual and the physical in your lives, because man is made up of both components. And Adam is man. It's from the word Adama, earth, but it's also from the word Adama le'elyon, one who's likened to the Supreme One. The truth of the matter is, most human beings establish some form of balance between the physical and the spiritual. Because a person who spends his or her life exclusively indulging in physical pleasures, it would be considered gross or hedonistic. So instead, we turn to other things which balance the physical appetites: poetry, literature, music, art, nature, and all of them provide us with a more spiritual dimension in our lives. But that's not the vision of harmony and balance that was offered to us at Sinai. Because from the moment that God revealed himself within the physical world, the spiritual and the physical were no longer separate entities with the option to dip into one or the other, depending upon mood or need. What happened at Sinai was that the two fused into one. The spiritual is within the physical, and the physical can elevate itself to the level of the spiritual. Just to explain how this works, at a time when Lindy and I were becoming newly observant, she was present at a non-kosher function, and a Reform rabbi, who was a friend of her parents, was tucking into the food with a very hearty appetite. And Lindy turned to him and said, "How can you eat non-kosher food?" And he said, "Because I don't see God in my stomach." And Lindy said, "Well, I see God even in my stomach." The mechanism of balance that controls our bodies, without which life would be utterly unbearable, does not choose between a left and a right ear. Perfect balance means an integrated whole. And this powerful and revolutionary idea of perfect balance being the fusion and the integration of the spiritual with the physical was encapsulated by Moses in a single pithy statement: Ha'azinu shemayim va'aretz. Listen to the spiritual and the physical within you. What a timely message for this time of the year.